We are rolling on a Wednesday night here at 6 o'clock Eastern Time at the Voice of College Football. Are we rolling toward 4 consecutive wins? What do you think? What do you think, folks? Bring those questions, those comments in here for the next hour to talk Florida State football. Clemson week. Logan Robinson on the line, of course, from Knoll Game Day. Hey, Logan.
We're here. We made it just a tad bit late, but I think we'll be all right. It is Clemson week, so everybody's got the energy. We're ready to we're ready to talk some Knowles. I think Florida State has some confidence going into this one, which they haven't had in a lot of years. So I think it's going to be a fun one.
Want to let everyone know, which is only a couple people here since we just clicked the live button, but obviously we're going to have a couple thousand after this that watch the replay that Logan stopped by earlier this week. So check out those segments that are posted right here, the Voice of College Football on the Florida State channel, as we broke down the game against Clemson. Obviously looked back at the last few weeks and what's working right for the Noles. So you guys know the drill. You guys ultimately produce the show, so leave your comments and your questions, and we will get to them. Otherwise, hey, Logan and I are just going to chop it up on FSU here. So, man, Mike Norvell and Dabo Swinney, you made a comment about this the other day just in regards to, Mike's only been around here for what would have been one Clemson game. So this is his first Clemson game, season number 2. But already the rivalry a little bit took a different swing last year, obviously, with the maybe miscommunication, disagreement over whether the game should be played and whether the COVID rules were still in play and whether they had been violated and whether the game should be played. And it seems to just kind of added another dimension to the rivalry and maybe these two particular coaches not being too fond of the other team, the other program.
Yeah, no, that definitely sparked off something last off season, and that's a great way of starting off a good rivalry there. Why not? Florida State fans already aren't too liking of Dabo Swinney, but after what Dabo Swinney did last year, kind of just calling Florida State, fake lying, saying that they didn't have any kind of COVID things going on. And, we all know how college football was last year. If you had a good amount of players that had COVID, you just weren't going to play that weekend. And, Dabo Swinney, they were making the travel down to Tallahassee and had to hit a U-turn and called Florida State kind of sissies. They didn't want to play them. And, that already sparked it off. And, Mike Norvell and staff and the administration were being very safe for Florida State and the players. And, this week and listening to both of them, Dabo Swinney has talked very highly of Jordan Travis, the running game for FSU. Spent just maybe 30 seconds maybe on Florida State and the staff on what the start of their season was. And he did say that he was impressed on how the staff did in Tallahassee about how handling a 0-4 and then now going on a 3-win streak. That's not something you usually see around any kind of sport, let alone, in college football. But, this rivalry is something that will, I think, churn up a little bit. I think Mike Norvell isn't really fond of Dabo Swinney. And I don't blame him to start off last year and, that being Mike Norvell's first season and coming through a pandemic more than anything, that just adds on to the fun that will be on Saturday and get to see if how they shake hands and if there's a little bit of chatter or if it's just a little handshake. Good luck, best to you, and see you after the game kind of situation there. And I'm all for any kind of chippiness. I'm all about it. It's football. That's why we're here covering it. It's fun. So
it is football, and constantly these committees are trying to regulate all that kind of stuff out of it. Celebrations gone, taunting gone, all this sort of thing gone. So, we're still playing football. It's a physical sport. It's a man's sport. It doesn't need to be crazy disrespectful, but still there's trash talking. There's, again, who's the better guy, who's the better team, who's better. Let's show it on the field. Let's see.
Yep. exactly. And that's just what football is all about. I'm all about it. I think Mike Norvell, you can go back to the press conference today, but he was just keen in on his team. He's barely talked a ton about Clemson this week. Really, I remember Jimbo during his days here, he would talk about opponents, get them out, but Mike Norvell specifically focused on his team and getting better there. And, I'm sure behind the scenes they're taking good advantage of looking at film from Clemson and everything of that nature, and the quarterbacks that both could potentially be playing on Saturday. And so, there's no need to, maybe he just doesn't want to talk so much, and that's fine. That will work. And we'll see if it can add into some storylines on Saturday, because I'm sure ESPN would love to talk about Florida State and, them not being able to play last year. So it's officially Dabo Swinney versus Mike Norvell, first week going at it. I think it's going to be a fun next couple of years, starting off strong. A little heat.
Yeah, we got Jason Priester stopping by a little bit later from allclemson.com on SI to give us the breakdown on the Clemson side. Tigers a 10-point pick by Vegas, a game that we would have thought maybe 6 weeks ago before the season started might be in the 25 to 30 range. But Florida State's ripped off 3 straight. Clemson's struggling, especially on offense. The defense still pretty top-notch despite some injuries, but the offense is struggling.
Yeah, now looking at, a little bit of their season more this week, it just doesn't seem like things are clicking. Definitely for DJ too. They're expected. I mean, he was one of the Heisman favorites coming into the season, and that's just completely collapsed. And it just doesn't seem like they're able to find a rhythm there on offense. And, Florida State's defense is getting better. I mean, the pass rush is on a whole different level than it was last year. And Jermaine Johnson has been great. Keir Thomas, along with some, Lovett and guys on the interior. Robert Cooper, I thought, has had a really good month of football. So, this is a vulnerable Clemson offense. There's still playmakers on that team. They'll be without their leading rusher coming into this game too with COVID protocol. But, it's it's just one of those things where Florida State, just has to stay dialed into their game plan and the kind of mentality they've been playing with, because, you go into this and you can have the hype and hoorah and all that kind of stuff, but really just stay strict to your game plan, listen to the coach, and believe in that system, believe in the scheme. Even if you're down, make a response. Florida State can take advantage of a down Clemson offense. This is their chance right here. But, Dabo Swinney doesn't want to lose to Florida State. That's one of his things. I think he circles every year. Florida State whipped him multiple times, and we know that. And he got ticked off and that's just a coach, and he had to respond, and he's done that against Florida State. But, when Florida State has a chance here to go up there and ruin that streak that Clemson currently has on Florida State, you got to go all out, all in on everything you got.
Seminole for life. Good point. Right out of the gate. Why wait for Logan to have to jump on everyone halfway through? Just get that like out of the way. When you get in here, before you get settled, get comfortable, grab your favorite beverage, do all those things. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. You can grab the link too and send it out there on social media. You can do that as well. Talking Florida State for the next 45 minutes, as we always do here at the Voice of College Football. Logan Robinson, Nole Game Day. Get that locked into your head. Nole Game Day. Check it out on Patreon. You get the insider information with the Discord. You've got various levels that you can dive in on, and basketball's coming as well. Also, folks, where was I going next with this? Shoot. Yeah, Logan's here before Jason. No Jason tonight. We missed Jason. Jason had a last-minute assignment that he had to check out on.
Yeah, hockey in October. I don't know. I'm not so sure about. And he's missing Clemson week. And I gave him 2 Nole Game Day shirts, and he was supposed to wear one tonight. Interesting how that works. I finally give him Nole Game Day shirts, and now I guess he's just done with the show. So
yeah, he's letting us down in so many ways. Many ways.
He didn't even send us a score prediction. I mean, what are we doing?
When it comes to this Clemson team struggling, Folks, if you haven't watched Clemson football, just check out the game-by-game numbers, because unless something different happens this week, this game's going to go down to the last 5 minutes of the game, because Clemson's 3-2 in the conference. They lost to Pitt, North Carolina State, one game in overtime, lost to Pitt last week. It was pretty much a one-score game most of the way. Pitt kicked a field goal late to widen that out to 27-17 final. So, they're still a decent team, obviously good talent on both sides of the ball, exceptional talent, a lot of it hurt, but they probably lost to what most people would consider to be the two best teams in the conference, probably NC State and Pitt, in close games, but also their 3 wins. Their 3 wins, they didn't roll anyone. Georgia Tech, they needed a goal line stand to save that game. Boston College, I was checking that game out, and BC got the ball inside the 10, down 6. We're talking with 45 seconds left, could have won the game. They kick a snap, and Clemson survived that. And all their wins have been the Syracuse game, just like the Florida State-Syracuse game. Came down to last possession, last few plays of the game, 17-14. So Clemson has not put it on anyone in the ACC in 5 games.
Yeah, no, they have not. And Florida State can, like I said earlier, they can take advantage of this, or they can go in and just screw it up. But the only thing that coming out of these practices the last 2 days we were there is just the factor of their mentality. I mean, today was the most competitive practice I've seen all season. And I know you've got that energy going into a big game, but it was just strictly really good competition, guys being in the right spots, guys listening. I mean, there was no breaks. I mean, everybody knows if you're in our Discord, there's only about a 5-minute water break. And then after that, it is just nonstop boot camp for the next hour and a half, nonstop. Guys one-on-ones, a lot of physicality too this week too, worth noting. And, talk about health-wise for Florida State, Devontae Love-Taylor is expected to be the starter on that offensive line on Saturday. But, you also don't know about Dylan Gibbons, who's been a great addition on the offensive line and bringing that veteran experience to the front line. We're going to have to keep an eye out if he'll be a participant. I would expect Bavion Johnson to come in if Gibbons is not available right now. I do think it will be Bavion that takes Gibbons' place. It just depends. Like I said, it'll be a game time kind of decision. But right now I'm feeling Bavion Johnson will have to come in, and as a 5th-year veteran, come in and, bring the heat. And he's got experience. Obviously, he came in as a really highly touted recruit, and they're going to put him at guard for Gibbons if he's not available. So, health-wise overall, though, other than that, we still don't know about Sidney Williams, safety for FSU, if he'll be a full go. But Florida State feels, I think, pretty comfortable, too, in that safety room with guys that have had a lot of playing time, a lot of experience, talented, too. And, I think overall, on the health side, Florida State feels optimistic heading into this one, and that bye week was much needed. And going into Jacksonville State, allowing some starters to get a lot of rest for that game is key, including Devontae Love-Taylor, one of the best offensive linemen for Florida State.
Yeah, Florida State, 3 straight in, 4 down, 3-4 at this point. Clemson at 4-3. And obviously, we talk all off season about what games are going to be won, which games are going to be lost, what's toss up. And this was the number 1 on the loss list. Everybody agreed on that. And that's not necessarily the case now. So,
yeah,
you remember well going back 5 years or so. I find these kind of things really interesting and looking at trajectory of programs. So Florida State owned the conference for a long, long time. Overall, from the time they joined the conference, they owned the ACC. But most notably, obviously, under Jimbo, national championship in 13, and then the 14 run to the playoffs again, had won the conference, about 4 consecutive years. Then 2015 comes, and, you saw it over the next 3 years where Clemson took over and that transition happened. And of course, Jimbo leaves. His last 2 teams lost to Clemson, but really close games. You could see where they were kind of, meeting And that transition was going on. And now, after Clemson's owned it for 5 or 6 years, we'll see if Florida State, certainly it's different than it was then, because they were definitely the two best programs in the conference. And now who knows who is. It's all over the place. You still got to consider Clemson to be the best program. But in terms of the best team in this conference, I've got no clue, because my goodness, I did ACC power rankings. I have yet to produce the video, and throw out Duke and everybody else, man, anybody could be playing anybody this weekend. And if you told me Boston College is playing NC State, or Pitt's playing Syracuse, or throw any game out there, anybody could beat anybody. It's a crazy conference.
It is wild right now. It is just crap crazy. That's what it is right now. I mean, the fun part about it is, though, that Clemson's not up there, so they're a little vulnerable for Florida State right now. But other than that, I mean, Wake Forest, who would have ever thought that was kind of going to happen? I mean, they got a veteran quarterback, but it's just such a weird time right now. But it kind of feels like this should have been the season last year where things were a little wild, but that wasn't the case, and it's heading into this year. And a lot of teams making some moves. A lot of transfers happened to some of these ACC schools, including some Florida State transfers going over and excelling at other institutions. But it's such a weird thing to see. Florida State, the start of this season, be one of the lowest kind of power ranked teams, whatever you want to call it, and now they're reaching into that top 7, top 6 kind of area where some people are ranking them just because of the streak they're on. Am I fully sold on it? Just off of the competition they played? Not exactly. I know Syracuse is doing its thing, and people are talking very highly. I think some national people are looking just at a 3-game winning streak and maybe not looking at the competition that Florida State has faced. But I'm not fully entirely sold on it, but this weekend it could really get me. I mean, you look back at the North Carolina game, though. I mean, they weren't supposed to really entirely win that game either. I mean, let's be honest with that. I mean, I don't think a lot of us predicted before the season that Florida State would win that game, but they go up there and, I mean, they handled that game the entire game, the whole 60 minutes. But, going into now Clemson, it just seems like a different animal. I don't know if it's just because Mac Brown can never beat Florida State ever in his tenure as a head coach, or, looking in Death Valley with Dabo Swinney. I think it's going to be this will be a game where will be fun to see both head coaches going at it. You kind of don't usually get that as much, but two really smart head coaches just going at one another. And it'll be interesting to see if Florida State can also, I think one of the keys is going to be takeaways. And Florida State has been kind of in a groove here lately. You got to see Jamie Robinson along with Jarvis Brownlee, who brought back that 70-yard pick 6 on Saturday. You're starting to see the takeaways starting to get into a groove. And this week has been huge and practice-wise for interceptions. I mean, I've counted so many the last 2 days. Florida State is going to have to do that. I mean, DJ is not having the best season overall, but you're going to see Florida State's game plan get after him and cause him to feel a little uneasy to hopefully be able to take advantage of getting those takeaways, because the DBs have been in their groove lately, and they've hit a switch definitely and started up there in Chapel Hill. And, the defensive line has been helping a lot with that, with getting after the passer. You bring Jermaine Johnson over, that already causes quarterback to move, and then Keir Thomas is just waiting there, or Gainer, who you're running around kind of blitzing, which he always should have been. That's how he should have been used for 2 years now. Use him as a guy that can, be an eye on the quarterback, but also use as a blitzer, just because he's got a decent amount of size. He's not a true size of a linebacker, but he's got speed, and offensive lineman versus him speed-wise, it just ain't going to work. So, that's going to be a big-time key, is that pass rush to help that DB room get takeaways this upcoming weekend.
Got Logan here from Knoll Game Day. As always, we've done this 130 times.
It's like crazy to think now. That number feels wild. It doesn't seem like 130, but oh my goodness.
It's so a lot of times. Around 2.5 years. around 2.5 years, and Logan's been here, he's missed 2 or 3, whatever it's been. So hope you guys enjoy it. Super Chat's on. Also, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Contribute there. If you want to bypass YouTube, you can do it there. Again, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. Just hit Mark Rogers TV or right here on the Super Chat. Hey, Logan, you mentioned the transfer portal. So, that's a situation where it's like NFL free agency, where obviously the match has to happen on both ends, where a player enters the transfer portal and they may look at Florida State and think, hey, that's a great destination, but it's got to work out for Mike Norvell and his staff. And they evaluate, okay, this is the shape of our roster right now. These are the numbers in regards to scholarships, positions, need. Okay, yeah, this guy's a good match. Or, he's not. And then, at some point we get the news that so-and-so is transferred. They were in the transfer portal for a couple of weeks and now, boom, they're transferring to Florida State. So, we don't know always some of those situations where a player may have wanted to go somewhere and wasn't able to. It just wasn't, deemed as a good situation for the team to take him on. But with Florida State, I can think of big impact transfer portal additions for other teams across the country, but I don't know if I can think of this many on one team. And sure, they missed on a couple. You're going to miss on a couple, but I don't know if I can think of a team that's made enough good decisions on who to bring in through the transfer portal, especially on defense.
Yeah, no, Florida State did a really good job this last offseason and even the year before, but this season specifically, talking Jamie Robinson, who's had a solid year. The biggest star is going to be Jermaine Johnson, but Keir Thomas too on the other side. Those are two starting defensive ends. You needed depth, but you really need some starters too. And boom, you were able to grab both of them, and they've excelled in what they needed to do and what they came into Florida State as a game plan under Mike Norvell and Adam Fuller. They needed these guys to come in and produce right away, and they've done that. But to see, Jamie Robinson, Keir Thomas, and Jermaine Johnson come in day one as starters is huge. And you still got guys like Miko Dotson, who transferred from FAU, that's still contributing during this season too. You got Jarquez McClellion, that's out there too, participating in games, who hasn't had a ton of experience, but is getting there and getting a good amount of reps. And that's just specifically defensively. If you're looking also on the offensive side of the ball, you start off with Mackenzie Melton, who's been a big time leader. He talked about it today in the press conference, saying, it might not be playing as much, but I get to be back there. And if I'm called up or if it's my time to go in, and I know that I'm fully ready. But he's been a fantastic addition inside the locker room more than anything. And that's what we talked about this whole offseason, that even if Mackenzie Melton isn't that Mackenzie Melton that we saw at UCF, still to have that veteran leadership plus a winning guy, bringing that winning culture into that locker room would be huge for Florida State, and that maturity. And he's clicked with everybody on the team, along with that, the quarterback room specifically with Jordan Travis. Those guys hang out a ton. Milton's been a great addition to this program at Florida State, and he's going to represent that Seminole logo well. He's been doing it. And, he might not get a lot of playing time, but, he's been huge on the back, behind the scenes more than anything. And then, your leading guy at running back, Deshaun Corbin. I mean, he transferred from Texas A&M, and now he's exploding. I mean, he's having a fantastic season. Him and Treshaun Ward just, back and back. I think they're competing with one another on who's going to get the most yards of every game, but that's just not their mentality, but that's how I feel like it is. But Deshaun Corbin has been phenomenal. And one of the things, you noted on, Mark, and not going to get everybody that is going to excel, or maybe not excel right away, but Andrew Parchment, there's a lot of expectations about him coming in to be a big time, the leading receiver for Florida State. And that's just not the case right now for AP. And, that might take a little while, and just getting better clicked with the offense. But right now, Florida State feels pretty fine with what they have at wide receiver. So there's a lot of things. Jordan Wilson, too, has been a solid contributor, blocking at tight end and even catching a few passes. It's just crazy how many transfers are Dylan Gibbons, who we mentioned earlier, Devontae Love Taylor. Those are two guys that transferred. FIU for Devontae Love Taylor and Dylan Gibbons from Notre Dame. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. But, not only the talent on the field that they brought, but that coming in and guys that they just get along really well. And that's something that Markrovers, it's practically like an interview session that him and the rest of the staff will do. Will this fit my locker room? Are there going to be big egos coming in here? Because that's what Florida State had before. You got to annihilate that kind of situation or those kind of personalities from that locker room, because Florida State Marvell's already done that. He's already shipped out a few guys and has suggested transferring. He won't say it. Nobody will ever say it, but there's definitely been times where, time to move on from somebody if they're hurting and putting a disease in that locker room. Either you change or things are just aren't going to work out here. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic when you talk about ego, because you want alpha dogs in the locker room. So you want egos, but it's got to be directed in the right way. It's got to be, okay, we're all brothers. We all work together. We all have each other's backs. And my ego doesn't come before the team. My ego doesn't come before the guy that's lined up next to me on my side. But my ego is going to come into play on Saturdays. And my ego is going to come into play to take charge of this game, take charge of this huddle, take charge of whatever my role is on the team. And so, that's a fine line to get that energy and that whatever you want to label it, that dog mentality in the right direction.
Yeah. And, one thing, I listened to the Jermaine Johnson interview on the Pack and Durham show on the ACC network, and I thought he's came in with a fantastic mindset. He came in really, really, I think, in love with Coach Norvell and the coaching staff that he's brought to Tallahassee, but he just really, really loves his coach. And he just wants to help the program overall. But, you start off 0-4. This is a guy that still was doing fantastic and still is, being one of the top sack leaders in the country. And he could have easily just been selfish and just kind of done his own thing, blah, blah. Let me get my sacks. Let me get my stats, everything. But he's contributing overall as a leader. I catch him at practices all the time, going at one-on-one, talking with guys, telling them right after a drill what you can do, what you could have done better, hyping them up, dapping them up, being there for them. And, Jermaine Johnson, extremely impressive, not only on the field, but listening to him on interviews, being able to talk with him. He's representing Florida State very well. It stinks. It's going to suck, I think, after this season for Florida State fans to realize that they won't have him on the roster, but it is going to be something that fans are going to be really excited to say Jermaine Johnson, former Florida State Seminole, when it's on Sunday Night Football, because he is going to be a monster in the league, in my opinion. He's came in and gotten those reps that he was promised, and he's earned them. Not only he was probably promised a lot of playing time, let's be honest, but he's also earned it, both as a leader, both as a player, both as a person too, representing Florida State extremely well. And on Saturday, he's going to be in prime time Death Valley, which, he's going to want to show out. And if I were to expect anyone to have a big game, to be set and ready, healthy, ready to rock on Saturday, is going to be number 11. And he's going to want to get after it and show there's still, it's all about FSU. Everything's FSU. But at some point, you'd like to show a little national television, show those scouts that you could pop a mofo here and there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Logan's hopefully YouTube doesn't hear that. Yeah, YouTube doesn't. They didn't hear it. Yeah, YouTube didn't hear it.
Yeah.
They can't catch that one in the algorithm.
Yeah, I wouldn't put anything past them. It's crazy what they can catch.
That is true.
Crazy what they can catch. All right. They can loosen things up a little bit, though. Man, it's a little bit too much. But Clemson, Florida State. So before we continue on, and we're awaiting Jason Priester, writes for All Clemson on SI, to join us to break down the matchup too. People hear us talk about the Discord, what you got going at Noel Game Day, and are probably like, what's that all about? Not just the Discord, but everything that's available, because you guys are blowing it up when it comes to coverage and information and content.
We're rolling. Somehow we're still alive. We're in the Discord. We just actually went to practice and gave live updates for all of our Patreon members on there. That's patreon.com/NoleGameDay. Only $2.99 a month. You guys can go check that out. It connects you straight to the Discord app where, like I said, we're giving live updates. And then now this week specifically for big games like this, after practice, we'll go in there into it's kind of like a voice room. And I'll be able to go in there and tell you specifically what was going on, answer questions as much as I can. Got to restrict some things from practices, but get to actually go in there and dial in and give you guys the inside scoop about what happened at practices. We also get to do pregame in there too, and a ton of other things. We're doing NFL, we're doing MLB. I mean, there's all kinds of goodies and basketball nuggets with stuff coming up this week. There's some basketball nuggets that we've dropped too. Could be a good week for the Florida State Seminoles. So that's patreon.com/NoleGameDay. And we'll be live tonight at 8:30 here on fellow YouTube platform. We'll be live with Jacquez Patrick. He's going to help us preview a little bit of Florida State versus Clemson and see if he gives us a little score prediction. He's with the 49ers right now. So excited to catch up with him. It'll be our second time with him on Hear the Spear. So looking forward to it. It is crazy. And it looks like we have a Nole Game Day groupie in here.
And yeah, no doubt about that. And also on Patreon, you get my picks 10-6 last week against the spread, 95-58 against the spread this season. So check them out on Patreon as well. Man, we get a little treat tonight. We got Jason Priester on the line from All Clemson on SI. How's it going, Jason?
It's going pretty good, man. How about you guys?
We're doing well. We got Logan here. This is our Florida State show we got going every Wednesday night. So you guys, have a little rivalry going here. So let's do this, Jason. I'm going to get out of the way after you tell us what's wrong with Clemson football, because I was just how much
time you got?
We only got about 15 minutes. Yeah, you can't go on and on forever. But everybody join the work we got with Jason over on our Clemson channel. Jason's nice enough to join us every week to break down Clemson football. And, of course, Logan's here every Wednesday night live. So, man, yeah, what's going wrong with this football team? Because I just kind of ran through the 5 games in the ACC where, all those games came down to a possession. So who knows? They could be 5-0. They could be 0-5 right now.
Yeah, Dabo Swinney likes to preach how they're just a few plays here and there from being undefeated. But at the same time, they're just a few plays away from being a one-win team, too. I mean, I think could have easily gone, the other way in some of those close wins they've had. And as far as what's going wrong with this team, you name it, and it's going wrong when you're talking about the offense. I mean, we're talking about a quarterback who came in with a mountain of expectations on his shoulders, and he is not living up to them at all. We saw him in 2 games last year, 2 starts. He looked phenomenal. Everybody's got their theories as to what's wrong with him this year. I tend to go back to that opener against Georgia and that beating he took, man. And he took a beating that night. There's just no other way around it. The offensive line was just abysmal. The receivers weren't very good. They couldn't run the ball when they attempted to, and they didn't attempt to very much. And ever since then, he looks like a guy that just does not trust what he's seeing. He doesn't trust his protection. He doesn't trust his receivers. And it's led to some bad mechanics. His footwork's off. His accuracy's been as inconsistent as you can get. I mean, he'll look fantastic on one throw, and he'll sail the next one 20 yards over a guy's head. And it's led to some problems, chemistry problems between him and those wide receivers. There's been a ton of drops, with those receivers. I counted up at least 6 against Pitt on Saturday. It's been a recurring theme all season long. And then that offensive line, it's gotten better as the season's gone, but it's still a work in progress. Started 3 different centers throughout the season. It's been rotating. It's been like musical chairs over there at left guard. Will Putnam's been hurt at right guard. It's just been one thing after another with this team. And then the injuries. Oh, my Lord, the injuries. There's like 14 guys out for the season, 3 guys left midseason in the transfer portal. I mean, it's just one thing after another with this Clemson team.
Logan, I'll let you get into it if you've got any questions for Jason.
Yeah, I was going to ask, number one, what is kind of like the feeling around Clemson right now, just overall? Because we've heard the same thing. Dabo was a lot. Now both Jimbo and Dabo are kind of the same way in how they talk after games and say, one play, just only one play, man, we would have had it, But you're right. Both Florida State has been the same case before, where there could have been, they're just one play away from not winning any games this season. But what's kind of like the feeling for Clemson fans and you overall? With Florida State coming in on a streak right now, a lot of national people saying their things, and I don't think they really watch football that much. They just say things, but a lot of energy for Florida State, at least right now, and a lot of confidence. The team's starting to feel like a team under Mike Norvell. But kind of what's the feeling in Clemson right now with this game?
Well, as far as this game, it kind of depends on who you ask. There's a lot of fans that have just checked out on this team, so frustrated by what they've seen. As for me personally, I got no idea what to expect from this Clemson team Saturday. No idea at all. You go back and watch that Pitt game the other day, they were, a couple of plays away from being a drop pass away from being up 14-0 and having your foot on their throat. And then the next thing you know, they're down 10, 14 points. But honestly, man, I have no idea what to expect. Florida State's been playing pretty well, the last few weeks. I don't think there's a whole lot to be gauged from the game against UMass. They did what they were supposed to do. But the two games before that, they've been playing well, much better than people thought they would be playing at this point in the season, or a lot of people thought anyways. Jordan Travis can beat you in a lot of ways. Those two running backs they've got, they can do some damage to you in a hurry. And Clemson's coming in with a depleted defensive line, missing Brian Basee. They just got Tyler Davis back last week at defensive tackle. He only played like 20-something snaps. Even the guys behind him are hurt. Ruka Rojo's been playing banged up. Trey Williams has been playing hurt. So, this Clemson team's definitely vulnerable right now. If Florida State's going to end the losing streak, I think they've got a good chance to go in there and pull off the upset this weekend. I'll be honest. I really do. I was shocked that Clemson was opened as a 10-point favorite. I still don't know what Vegas has got going on over there, making Clemson these double-digit favorites every week. But, I was shocked by that. I expect another real close football game, and the team to play, that makes the least mistakes is probably going to win.
Yeah, I think overall, I was telling Mark earlier, I think a lot of the national people and maybe Vegas too aren't entirely watching Florida State's game as much, and there's still a lot of things that Florida State needs to get better at, and that's why I think overall it's going to be a good game. Two teams that one's kind of rising there and one that's just having a tough season overall. And, Florida State's the biggest thing right now. We talked about the transfers that Florida State has been able to bring in. And, Jermaine Johnson is going to be a big time player for FSU on that defensive end side of the ball. And, with DJ not having the season that he's having, what's the kind of talk about that quarterback room and what they want to do there? Because some people are saying, we see two quarterbacks. Will it just be solely focused on DJ? It just seems like, maybe Dabo's he just kind of said it last week in the press conference. Hey, it's open. Competition is here. This is what we've got to do. We're at this point of the season where, what? If you're impressing me the most, you just can go ahead and get the start.
Yeah, he said that, and I believe it. But behind DJ is still, you got third-year guy Tyson Pumachan, and then behind him, you got a bunch of walk-ons. That's what the quarterback room is. It's DJ and Tyson Pumachan, and I'm a big Hunter Helms fan. The third guy on the depth chart. But he was a walk-on. And he's on scholarship now, but he came to school as a walk-on. He just, he can do some things that you like, but he does not have the arm strength either the other two guys have. But I fully expect DJ to start. It wouldn't shock me to see Tyson play some. They've got really nothing to lose now. But to me, even if you're taking a big picture approach, I still think you got to hope DJ can get this thing turned around somehow, because I've always been of the opinion that Tyson was probably going to transfer after this season. Thought that even before the season started. Third-year guy on pace to graduate. if he wants to go somewhere and play, now's the time. Or after the season will be. But don't get me wrong, it wouldn't shock me if he didn't. I just always kind of saw him going that route. And the DJ's supposed to be the future of this program. So big picture wise, I could see them sticking with him for the most part and going down with him, so to speak. I think he's going to be the guy that starts. I think he'll be the guy that plays the most, unless he just goes out there and just totally stinks it up, and they got to yank him. But other than that, I think it's going to be him. Wouldn't shock me to see a little bit of Pumachan, but I just don't see. I think if the other guy gave them a better shot to win, he'd already been on the field by now.
Hey, Jason, what do Clemson people, fan base, alumni, et cetera, what do they think of Florida State? Where does Florida State stand? We know South Carolina is a big rival. Georgia Tech's an old-time rival that a lot of people outside the ACC or even those two fan bases don't even know exists. But I hear a lot about Georgia Tech. And, where does Florida State? Was it just a rival because they both were good at the same time and battling for the conference? And how does the Clemson fan base look at Florida State?
I think most of the Clemson fan base, views Florida State as one of their biggest rivals. For a while there, this is one of the biggest games in the season for a few years there, across the whole country. And these have been some entertaining games, since Dabo Swinney's been there. You had the Bowden Bowl before him. There was a couple of those games was pretty entertaining. But most of the fan base, they view Florida State as one of their main rivals. Probably just right there under South Carolina. Clemson's dominated the series with Georgia Tech in recent years, North Carolina State in recent years. And even though they got a winning streak against Florida State, Florida State used to be the king of this conference and was for a long time. So, most of the fan base views Florida State as a legit rival. And this is one of the biggest games on the schedule every season. Even during the last few years when Florida State's been down, most fans still view this game that way.
For FSU and us covering Florida State, we're all looking at what, obviously, how can Florida State take advantage of Clemson? I do that with every opponent every week. But obviously, number one, defensively for Clemson, they're no joke whatsoever. They're playing well this season, and they're doing great. They've got playmakers about everywhere. And now that you got TJ back there, you got him on the defensive line. We'll see how good he's going to be able to go there for the Tigers. But just overall, if there was one weakness on that defensive side of the ball, what do you think that is for Clemson heading into this game?
Probably, probably the interior of that defensive line is banged up as it is. I think that's something. If a team's got the right talent, that's something that can be exposed. And I'm not sure exactly how close to fully healthy Tyler Davis is, and Trey Williams is hurt and he's still playing. Rugen Rojo's been playing banged up. Even a couple guys behind him's banged up. So I think the interior of that defensive line can be, exploited to a degree, especially with the way that Florida State likes to run the ball sometimes. And there's some guys in that secondary that can be picked on too. As good as Nolan Turner's been for Clemson, that's a guy you don't want, in one-on-one coverage on certain guys. He's a guy that can be exploited at times. And there's another safety, Andrew Makuba, who has been fantastic this season. Don't nobody out there misunderstand what I'm saying, because he came in, won this job, passed all those other safeties by. But he's still just a freshman, and from time to time he'll make a freshman mistake, and you can beat him. But those would be the two things, a couple of safeties on the back end and that interior of that defensive line.
Do you think it is the biggest threat for Clemson probably being Florida State's rushing game right now? It's definitely exploding. It seems like Florida State's kind of found a rhythm, at least definitely with Jordan Travis. I know Dabo talked about him yesterday at the press conference, just saying, how dangerous he can be. But is that mainly if you're going into this game and looking at the matchup there, and if you're Clemson, is it that rushing game that worries you a little bit, probably the most out of this
Yeah.
team?
I would say first and foremost, you got to make sure Jordan Travis you don't let him run all over you with his legs, because we've seen he can do that, no doubt about it. You got to make sure you keep him in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let him kill you with his legs. But yeah, that running game seems to be going. Both those backs, what are they averaging? 7-8 yards a carry or something like that.
Yeah, in that seven area.
Those guys, they can run the ball. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, being on the road a lot, I don't get to watch all the games as much as I used to in the past. I haven't seen much of Florida State, except some highlights here and there, except for one game since the opener. But yeah, it seems to me that would be, you got to slow down that running game, and I would make Jordan Travis beat me with his arm.
Yeah, that's what I would think too. That's what Clemson's game plan will most certainly be, because the biggest threat is those legs that Jordan Travis has. But the thing is, I think overall, at least from Tallahassee and everybody talking, it's all about Clemson's defense, and if Florida State can put some points on the board, and we'll see. That's why I think it'll be a really good game this upcoming weekend.
Magic number's 20. Get there, you ought to be good to go.
Yeah, I know, right? I know.
Clemson hasn't scored 20 in regulation against a Power 5 team yet.
Isn't
Wow.
that crazy?
Yeah, they haven't.
The only time they got over 20 was in the double overtime game against North Carolina State.
Wow. Yeah, 5 games in the ACC,
That's what I say.
plus
you
the
get to
Georgia
20, you ought to
game.
be all
Wow.
right.
I think they could still be playing against Georgia right now and not have 20.
I kept, watching this team from week to week, I see the one self-inflicted wound after another, the missed block on the offensive line, or two offensive linemen blocking the same guy, like on that shovel pass the other day, or the big drop on third down, or DJ overthrowing a wide open guy by 20 yards. It's just one thing after another. The critical penalty on the defense on a third down stop that extends a drive. It's just one thing after another. And for a few weeks there, watching all those self-inflicted wounds, I kept thinking that, this offense is going to come out of it at some point, because you see the talent and you think they can't just keep making these same mistakes over and over and over again. But they sure do, and they sure have. They have it's the same thing week in and week out. And I think, listening to those coaches talk, it's starting to sound like they don't really get it either. It's this starting to weigh on them too. Tony, for weeks we were told, that explosion's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Now they'll say, we think it's coming, but we're not sure when it's going to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might come in the spring game next year. Maybe that's when we'll see it.
Maybe so.
They do got one game left against UConn, so.
Well, there you go. There you go. Everybody explodes on UConn. You can't help but, if you can throw it in the air and the other guy can at least catch it, which I know is a problem sometimes with Clemson. You're pretty much, guys are running free in the secondary against UConn every play, so that's not an issue. Florida State Seminoles live right here, the voice of college football. Appreciate everybody being here. Jason Priester, allclemson.com. Get your fill on Clemson football. Be prepared for the game. Know your enemy. Know your opponent. So check in on Jason's work there at allclemson.com. Jason, we appreciate you stopping by, breaking things down for us.
Anytime, man. Appreciate it, Mark.
Logan,
Jason,
as always.
Fellow SI guy too. We're teamed
That's
up
it.
over there at SI, so
Nice.
we're family now. You picked the perfect person, Mark.
I did. I know how to pick.
Oh yeah,
the media
right
contributors here. Absolutely, I do.
Yeah,
I may not have any talent, but I know how to select.
Oh, don't even start.
There you go. Logan, thanks, man. You make this show go. I appreciate it, man. And everybody catch Logan at 8:30, right?
8:30, yes.
8:30 right here on YouTube, Knoll Game Day.
Appreciate you, Mark, always.
You guys enjoy the game this weekend. I know I will, because I don't have a dog in the fight, so I can just kick back and enjoy the ball game and hope somebody scores a few points in this one. So,
hope so.
Well, we'll see everybody back here next Wednesday night at 6 Eastern.
Yep.